What's up, Knucklehead? I am Lupine Fiasco, and this is your daily FaB gameplay. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the jungle. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I'll talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now compared to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like the upcoming US Nationals and, most importantly, walk away with that shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the deck I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaBery deck link available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the DFG Discord and the shiny cardboard Talishar card back. At higher tiers, your name will appear in every DFG video, you'll get bonus DFG content every week, and there are even more benefits to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Now, let's talk about our sideboard and about our game plan. Alright, let's go through the disclaimers. This is week negative 2.5 of the Part the Mistveil season, which means no one has any idea what's happening yet. Full disclosure, this game was recorded on Thursday, May 15th, the day after the end of spoiler season. This is the first time that any of us can play with the full set. And while Talishar has done a fantastic job of implementing all of the new cards, making sure they all work, there is no guarantee that my opponent's decks are going to work. This is a good game. I think this is representative of what I think New can be doing, but you're going to watch me make play mistakes that a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, we'll look back on and think, well, obviously you should have played around that card. But at the time of recording, I have no idea what I should be playing around. I know New has attack reactions because she's an assassin, but this is a week and a half before my pre-release, 2.5 weeks before the release of the set in fall. I don't know what New can be doing, and there's no guarantee that this is an optimized list. But just keeping all of that in mind, we're going to sit down with some Kayo and see if we can figure out how this matchup is supposed to go. Having won the die roll, I'm assuming we want to go second. That is generally the case into Assassin. It lets us block the opening attacks, be they dagger or cards from hand, and we get the first real crackback on our first turn where our opponent will not get to draw up once we pass. So going second into Assassin generally is the correct call. With my list the way it is here, we have no matchup guide for any of the new heroes, so New as an assassin, we're going to board as if she were a different assassin, in this case Uzuri. Again, I don't know if that's right, but it's what I'm doing here, and boarding as if she were Uzuri means that we are boarding for an aggressive assassin. We are playing as if she is a redline hero, which means that we don't have time to set up cast bones, we don't have time to get value out of our red smash instinct, we don't necessarily want to do as much blocking as would warrant bringing in Clash of Might, but we do want the option to block, which means that we are not bringing in yellow Wild Ride. We are also playing a lean 60-card deck so that we have the best chance of drawing into our gas like Blood Rush Bellow. What we will later learn throughout this game is that none of that is correct, and we should actually be playing as if New is Arachne. Is that going to be the case going forward? I don't know. This new is running over 60 cards. There is a lot of threat of banish happening, as you'll see at the end of this video. We were very close to being fatigued. Cast Bones would have been great. Having Clash of Might available to block with would have been great. Smash Instinct Red as a finisher, as a starter with agility, as a decent play in combination with Blood Rush Bellow would have been great. We're going to make do as is, but this should have been a little more apparent to me going into this game, is that new Mystic Hero, great Mystic Legendary Helmet, pretty incentivized to play blue cards, and if she is playing blue cards, then she's going a lot slower than we would expect from a hero like Uzuri. So if you are facing down your own new opponents, at least for now, until I have a sideboard guide for new and until we know kind of generally and competitively what new is looking to do, I would suggest boarding as if she were Arachne, which means just bring in 71 cards and try to not counter fatigue, but play against fatigue. Outside of that, I don't have any real advice for you about the play style that is more relevant than just jumping into the game and watching kind of what happens and talking about the turn cycles and maybe what we can learn from possible mistakes I made or possible successes that in other situations may have been wrong. So we are just going to jump into it here. Already, we're psyched that we're going second because our opening hand sucks for going first. We don't even have a good scab skin play, really. If we were going first, we would just throw a pack hunt, pitching pack hunt. Probably throw a pack hunt, pitching, send packing runner, just so we don't have two reds next to each other. But we do get to block here, and we are excited to do so. Actively interested in not letting his dagger hit. We don't want new to have the option to really get too much value out of her opening blues. Again, without really knowing what new is going to do, we are just looking to get opening value here. Now, of course, new has presented 68 cards, so being so aggressive with our blocks this early might not be correct. We are just playing into her fatigue plan. That's interesting. I do think in that case we probably still block the blues get go again dagger, but maybe take the scale peeler and hold on to an extra card. Here we have new for me, Levels of Enlightenment, which is E-Strike at home, based on how many blues new has pitched. In this case, it is 2. So we'll see what modes new picks, but between the E-Strike modes, it does appear that she has chosen Go Again, Draw a Card. We are just going to block with a pack hunt here, actually blocking relevant damage as opposed to the daggers, and holding on to our send packing, which to me is the most relevant card in our hand, the most important. We are going to get that send packing value. And we're a little happy for it because the hand we draw into is kind of clunky, but will also get us there. We're not playing Blood Rush here, there's no way. Maybe if we had blocked with our Sash previously, if we were a little further on in this game, I'd be interested in making that play, but otherwise, no. We do find ourselves in a position where we can't safely play Wild Ride. We would pitch a Blood Rush to play it, and we're taking a 66% chance that we don't discard our other Blood Rush. But this early in the game, for a simple Wild Ride play, those are pretty bad odds. What we're going to do instead is play Send Packing and pitch Wild Ride Blood Rush. That puts those back into the deck. We are going to stack them such that our Blood Rush will draw into a Wild Ride. When we get to Arsenal, second Blood Rush. Revealing a Codex of Frailty that new is going to try to protect. Codex at this point in the game is fantastic. For one thing, we have an Arsenal, so we aren't punished by the forced discard. For another, we can easily set up a turn where we don't attack with Claw, so Frailty doesn't matter. And third, new has exactly 1 attack in her graveyard, and it sucks. We don't need to block the Scale Peeler. This is new. Getting cards out of her hand. Only putting one blue into her pitch zone, so E-Strike at home really is not going to be a threat. We may decide not to block it at all. Though this hand doesn't really lend itself to going full aggro, we could discard Agile Windup at the end of New's turn to make that agility and play out 4-card Blood Rush at the same time. I don't really see the need to do that. What we can do instead is block this E-Strike at home with Smash Instinct for 3. We'll take 2 damage. On our turn, we throw Send Packing for 6, threatening the arsenal that New is going to get from her Ponder, and then we'll discard our Agile Windup to make Might and Agility. Set up that 5-card Blood Rush with Agility and maybe look to get some Sash value on New's next turn. We could definitely take 5 here and just keep the 5-card Blood Rush, but I don't think we need to be super greedy here. This is a time where we can block New and not get blown out by any kind of reactions. We're also threatening her arsenal. New, even looking over at her armor, we can see that she doesn't block very well. Her headpiece blocks for 2, but all of the rest of her equipment blocks for 1. She wouldn't want to give up Tunic or Flick Knives this early. Just seeing what we banished from New's arsenal. She's blocking 6, so she's going to protect this. Siren's Call just means that we need to anticipate blocking with an extra blue if this gets played. This being face-up information is very relevant for us, and without knowing what is in New's hand, I don't know if I would try so hard to protect this card. It seems a little junky. We do have a Command and Conquer that would force a blue out of our hand. This is actually a very interesting play from New, where if we were to block the CNC for 6, New could play her Siren's Call to get an extra card out of our hand and essentially tank our turn. If we block for 3, New just doesn't play the Siren's Call. CNC hits, destroys our arsenal, and she just arsenals Siren's Call again. Of course, we don't have any blues. Siren's Call doesn't matter. We can decide what exactly we want to do with this hand. We could put all of our equipment in front of the Command and Conquer, that being Bonebreaker, Sash, and Leathers. We have Agility, so unlikely to play our Blood Rush with 3 reds and a yellow. What we could do instead is E-Strike for 6, draw a card, then click go again. Potentially then we play our Blood Rush. We drew into a blue. Otherwise, we could throw Swing Big, maybe discard a Windup. It really depends on what we draw. The other line we could take, if we wanted to play out this Blood Rush and maybe get some Sash value here, is block with Sash, Scab Skins, and E-Strike. E-Strike being kind of the worst card in our hand. If we were going to make that block to play out the Blood Rush in Arsenal, I don't want E-Strike. I want Pulping, I want Swing Big, I don't want E-Strike for my Blood Rush turn. So kind of an interesting call here, knowing what New has in her hand. She probably is going to play out that Siren's Call. Do we want to give up so much armor this early, or do we want to try to hold on to some armor for later in the game? It really is just a tough call. I think if we're giving up so much armor this early, we are committed to holding on to this Blood Rush, which means it's sitting in our arsenal, potentially clogging it up. We are not guaranteed to have agility for another few turns. This is a tough decision. I know what I end up doing, but what I might do instead, looking back at this, is even just probably block with 3 pieces of armor and then throw a 4-card 16. E-Strike just gets plus power, and then we play out the Swing Big and not necessarily chance, maybe we draw that blue and have a good blood rush, or maybe we just do a 4-card 16 and that's really strong. Knowing that new is very likely not to keep an arsenal. So I think if I am making this call now, it would be block 6 with armor and hold on to these 4 cards. What I am going to end up doing instead is taking the blood rush line with Sash, Scabs, and E-Strike as blockers. At least I think so. Maybe I'll surprise myself. And that is the line I take. So we are going to take the blood rush line here. We aren't committed to breaking Sash. It's entirely possible that we would draw into a blue, we discard, we play blood rush, we discard our Mistveil. I think this is a fine line as well. Maybe we do just draw into a blue and a swing big or something, but with 3 reds and a floating resource, we are going to break Sash here. If we draw and keep a blue with either of these other 2 cards, we have a great turn. We do draw the blue, but unfortunately we don't keep it, which is a real shame. If we did have the blue here to pitch for Claw and Pulping or Bare Fangs, we are looking at a minimum rest of this turn of 13 damage. 4-card 24 is really good, but we can still settle for a 4-card 21. We get New's entire hand, we do push 7 damage. It costs us our Sash to do so, but a little unluck there that we didn't have even more damage that turn. Without any way to really get any other value out of that last 4-card hand, we just open with Wild Ride. Unfortunately, we draw into a yellow and discard a blue, so we are only going to be able to get CNC damage this turn. I do agree with sending CNC instead of Mandible Claw, just pushing the advantage while we have it, not setting anything into our arsenal that potentially gets affected by a CNC or Leave No Witnesses, and the fact that New didn't block the Wild Ride makes me think that we may need to care about arsenal disruption. With New holding 2 cards in hand, a floating resource, and Tunic on the table, it is likely that we need to care about a reaction. I am not really interested in letting Surgical Extraction just hit. This is a pretty good 4-card hand if we can keep all of this. So this is a situation where I like blocking with Fleshbag and Bone Breaker. That's totally uninformed. For all I know, New plays enough reactions in her deck that either of the cards in her hand are going to be one, and we should instead just save our equipment. If New is looking at our hand with Surgical, she doesn't really have a good option of what to take. If she takes Wild Ride, we just throw Swing Big and pass. If she takes Swing Big, we just play Blood Rush. If she takes the Blood Rush, we swing big and pass. If she takes our blue, we swing big and arsenal that Wild Ride. So it could be that we are just supposed to let her hit us with the Surgical Extraction. What I decide to do instead is block with armor and try to get her reaction. Without knowing if she's likely to have more than one, I actually think this line is incorrect. We should just let the Surgical hit because our hand works either way. So she does have the reaction. She is going to get +4 over the top. We lose our Fleshbag. We lose a card from hand as well as the Wrecker Romp from the top of our deck. Missouri does take the Blood Rush. We are going to get to just swing big for 9 and arsenal a Wild Ride, so not a disaster, but I would much rather be at 4 less life here and still have Fleshbag than, what happened instead. That's okay, we're learning. This is my first game against New, and it's week -2.5. We are going to make some early mistakes while we learn, maybe we just don't block the Assassin. New coming in with a, I want to say this is called Double Trouble. Sure, it'd be nice if I hovered over the new card. There it is. So we're looking at new to activate or play 2 or more attack reactions. That would give double trouble +2 and banish the top 2 cards of our deck. We don't really care about the top 2 cards of our deck, but we do care about incoming damage. And yes, we do have a Wild Ride in Arsenal. There's a pretty good chance we could convert a 5-card hand to offense. But what we can do instead is just block with Clash of Agility. If we do get our agility, instead of sequencing Wild Ride, Claw, hopefully the Swing Big that we didn't discard, what we can do instead is Swing Big, Wild Ride, Mandible Claw, and be guaranteed to throw our Swing Big, also be guaranteed to not take 3 points of damage. So yeah, blocking with the Clash here, absolutely the correct call. We do win our Clash. Not only that, we know that our Wild Ride is going to hit. So Swing Big, Wild Ride, Mandible Claw, great line here. Seeing the attack reaction on the top of New's deck is not something we really need to think about right now. Maybe she just blocks with it instead, but if she doesn't block with it, we can definitely play around that in the future. Swing Big for 8 with Go Again is a balanced card. Definitely good to have that. We do get another unmovable out of our new. That is going to give her the Quicken token, but I doubt she's really going to be able to use it unless she wants to take 9 damage here. We do make our Might, and we are going to get to Mandible Claw as well. New plays the Fate Foreseen from her arsenal. That was the 50% that we lost on that fleshbag turn. So it is entirely possible that we are supposed to fleshbag there, and if we win the 50%, then New takes an intellect penalty. We have a great hand set up, that big Blood Rush turn. Looking at a Leave No Witnesses for 4, notably we have no arsenal. We could block with Clash of Agility and Bone Breaker, make a Might, cover up the 4 damage, and even make a Quicken. We can use a Quicken with this hand. The line would be CNC for 8 with Go Again, then pitch into Mandible Claw, so we get full 11. What we can do instead is play Clash of Agility, discard our Mighty Windup to make 2 Mights, and then Arsenal Command and Conquer. Getting a little less damage on this coming turn cycle, but setting a CNC in Arsenal with 2 Mights is pretty good. Leave No Witnesses is not threatening an Arsenal. We don't care too much about the top of our deck, and we also don't care that New is making silver. She has no equipment to buy back. So eventually the silver will help her filter through her deck to find maybe an answer or a threat. But compared to Uzuri or Arachne, we care a lot less about Leave No Witnesses just banishing off the top. Clash of Agility is going to come in, deal 4 damage. We are going to make our 2 Mights, and we will just Arsenal a Command and Conquer. Uzuri taking a lot of damage to keep cards in hand. Let's see what exactly that does. At this point, we're just looking at her banishing the top of our deck and gaining life. I don't care about any of that. Our hand is pretty solid for threatening damage and disruption, though we are going to lose a card now to Uzuri's Mask. That card can be a number of things. With 2 Mights but no Go Again, we could E-Strike, give it Go Again, and then play the CNC from our arsenal. We could also Pulping, try to play the CNC from our arsenal. In either case, we don't need Command and Conquer from our hand. That is going to be what we banish. New will gain life, assuming she banishes an attack action from the top of our deck, which she's likely to do, and in fact does. So she does go back up to 15, which is relevant. We are at 27, but I don't believe she's intending to win through damage dealt. With the CNC in our arsenal, is pulping exactly what we want to do here? I think the answer is no. I think we actually do want to play this E-Strike, give it go again, and then play Command and Conquer for two reasons. The first is New has a card in her arsenal, and if it's a D-React, and she can stuff our pulping, then our turn is terrible, and we just lose some tempo. The other thing is, I would rather have a late game pulping than a late game E-Strike. So if we could hold on to this pulping, then that becomes a win condition later on. If we hold on to this E-Strike, it is potentially a win condition. It's a way to convert a 4-card hand to offense, but if we get through the next 26 cards of our deck, I am less optimistic that we get to keep a 4-card hand, much less convert one, than I am that we can keep a 2-card hand with a pulping that just wins the game. We would deal 1 less damage by taking the E-Strike line, but we hold on to a pulping, and I think that is a lot more relevant than getting a little more damage this turn. New banishes a card, and that's okay. We really don't care about that. And she just passes her turn. So can we do anything with agility on our turn? Nothing that we can't do without it. We can just keep these 4 cards. We are going to Mandible Claw for 4, discard Wind Up, E-Strike for 7. We could also think about playing Riled Up for 5 and discarding the Agile Windup to make it 6, Arsenal and E-Strike. That there was me checking Command and Conquer and Leave No Witnesses count. I'm pretty okay with not having an Arsenal here. Our blocking armor is almost non-existent. We've seen 2 codexes from New. I am more concerned that she's going to threaten my arsenal than she is going to punish me for not having one. So I would rather just throw more damage and not arsenal a card. Here we have a Persuasive Prognosis, which has the potential to greatly impact our turn. If we lost a red from the top of our deck and from our hand. At the same time, without knowing what reactions New is playing, what I need to play around, I can just block with Scabskins. Maybe I get blown out. Maybe this is a spike, maybe it's a Razor Reflex, maybe she can use her Tunic to play her +3 power, make a Fang Strike or a Slither. But for one thing, if it's make +3 Fang Strike, then we get blown out if we block 4. Or we just block 1 because I don't know what the ratios are, I don't know what I need to play around, so I think it's an all or nothing thing. Either we're blocking 1 or we're blocking 4, but I don't know that I need to block 4. What I do know is that I can use these 4 cards. I can play my Runner and attack with a Mandible Claw, and then arsenal a Run Roughshod, and that sounds really good. So that means that I am just going to block this with Scabskins and hope that New doesn't have it. And she doesn't. So that is probably wrong, what I just did, and I think that is something that in the future I would have a much better sense of what I'm supposed to do there. But at least in this instance, it works out. We do get got by another unmovable. The question is, do we want to Mandible Claw or do we want to Riled Up? I agree with Mandible Clawing. That is going to let us be a little more defensive with our next hand rather than worry about not being able to convert 5 cards. We are giving New the opportunity to be more aggressive. Scale Peeler is not anything we're going to block. But But we do get a little punished by that, unfortunately. Command and Conquer for 6 is just 1 point more than we can really deal with. If I could block this with Riled Up, Agile Windup, and Bone Breaker, I absolutely would. I would make a Might. I would protect my Run Roughshod in Arsenal. My turn would be Bare Fangs for 9 with Go Again into Run Roughshod. But instead, well, we can still kind of make that play. We just have to take 6 damage to do it. If I covered this Command and Conquer with Run Roughshod and Riled Up, I take 6 less damage, I protect my Run Roughshod in Arsenal, but then I can't play it because I'm 1 resource short. So what I would rather do, considering our deck sizes, considering the life point disparity that New is currently experiencing, I'm okay to just take 6, lose the Run Roughshod in my Arsenal, and then make the exact same play based on cards I have in hand. Discarding Pulping is a pretty big deal. I really would have liked to have Pulping. The ideal situation would have been to discard Agile Windup and be able to claw Pulping, but at the very least, if I could have Arsenal the Pulping, that potentially wins us the game later. We do, though, get to push 8 damage between Claw and Run Roughshod. We are forcing New to block, and just continuing to push damage. New giving us her headpiece, unlikely to use it again, just based on how far through this game we are. But getting 2 points of armor now instead of later is a big deal. Drawing into our Blood Rush Bellow, we can decide, do we want to slow roll this a bit? We do have Might, so Pack Hunt threatens lethal. We force New to do something at the same time. We then Arsenal this Wild Ride and hope that she doesn't have Disruption. Or what we could do instead is just play Blood Rush Bellow and hope to find enough damage that we can either keep her on the back foot or just win the game, which I think is fine. Notably, we are in second cycle, so we are very likely to come up on some blues. How do we want to pitch for the Blood Rush Bellow? Do we want to pitch our Beast Within and float a resource? Or do we want to pitch our Pack Hunt and try to discard Beast Within? I like pitching Beast Within. I want Pack Hunt and Wild Ride at this point. They both have the ability to close out the game, either through Go Again or through Intimidate. Pitching the Wild Ride does mean that we will find it again later when we are looking to convert 4-card hands if New just goes to a full fatigue strategy to run us out of cards. I think this is fine. Unfortunately, we do miss the Beast Within discard, but we have another opportunity to get it with this Pulping. We draw a Beast Within, so we are guaranteed to get the draw discard no matter what. But unfortunately, we are now a resource short of being able to Mandible Claw Beast Within. So if the question is, do we Mandible Claw and Arsenal a Beast Within or play a Beast Within? I like playing the Beast Within. Uzuri has the Uzuri New has the D-React to go to 2. And unfortunately, we draw into a hand that we cannot convert without rolling scabs, which, if you know me, I hate doing it. We're going to play the Assault and Battery, unfortunately having to discard a Beast Within. We take unnecessary damage, but we do make Agility. We do have some Arsenal, some selection of what we want to put into Arsenal. I like Smash Instinct. I can protect it. I think we are more likely to win off the back of a Smash Instinct than off a Send Packing. But at the same time, we have Might, and if we can protect the Send Packing in our Arsenal, New currently has a card in Arsenal, and maybe we screw up her plan if she can't just block with 2 cards and go to 1. Maybe that 3rd card matters a lot. That said, Smash Instinct plus Agility is a way to close out a game. Here we are dealing with Persuasive Prognosis again, and with Nu having 2 cards at this point, we still are in that same position of, well, we can make her have it, but if she does have it, I don't know how to block around it. So we're just going to cover up with Bonebreaker and see if we can get there again. We cannot. Nu does have the ability to transcend and then pitch to play Venomous Bite. So Persuasive Prognosis is getting that +3. It is going to hit. Nu is going to gain some life. She has a Slither or a Fang Strike. See, this is where I need to learn the cards. An attack reaction to either play or put into Arsenal, though she does choose not to play it. So what is most important about what just happened is that Nu gained 3 life. That is a huge deal considering where we are at in this game right now. We only have 8 cards left in our deck, so we really need to put some damage together, and Nu gaining 3 out of nowhere. Sigil of Solace is a really good card. We're going to get to come in with Runner for 7 with Go again. That refreshes our agility. We can then play our Smash Instinct from Arsenal. Maybe we hit a non-block, or maybe we hit a block in Nu's hand and leave her with a non-block, which would deal lethal damage. At the very least, we are getting a card from her, be it a D-React from Arsenal, which we know she doesn't have, or a card from hand. Getting Leave No Witnesses is pretty relevant. Nu breaking silver to draw a card, apparently whiffs. We have agility. Let's see if we can put a winning line together. The play here is going to be Mandible Claw for 3 with Go again. Play Riled Up, then discard Agile Windup to make Might and Agility. We're going to draw into a Wild Ride in our next set of cards. So potentially, we can win without the agility. We are not in a position where we need to discard Wind Up to Mandible Claw. I mean, what we could do instead here is just throw 11 damage at Nu between Riled Up, Agile Wind Up. But I think pushing 9 instead of 11 and getting Might Agility because of that is also great. I think that's a better line. It also potentially puts us into a position where Nu thinks we are threatening 5 and we're actually threatening 6. We get to discard Wind Up as an attack reaction that actually does something. The Wild Ride, Riled Up, threatening 5. Nu says no blocks, so either she has a handful of non-blocks or she's going to play a Fade Foreseen, anticipating going to 1. And we are going to get over the top of this Fade Foreseen with an Agile Wind Up. Make that Might and Agility. Riled Up sees us discard a card with 6 or more power. Goes up to 6, and unless Nu has life gain or another D-React, then she is just dead. Codex, Command and Conquer in hand, is just going to end up being 7 damage. We could take that. We would not have had an Arsenal anyway, so still in a good position to kill Nu if we don't win the game that turn, but we basically then have 1 turn left to try and put a win together, so I'm much happier to just win the game there. So that is our first Nu experience with Kayo. I think the matchup is going to be okay. If Nu ends up playing more like Arachne than like Uzuri, I feel really good about this matchup. Arachne is pretty easy for Kayo to deal with. She might have an easier time converting 4 or 5 cards to offense with all of her reactions, but if her reactions are not disrupting our hand or arsenal, then we are still going to outvalue her turn to turn. And if she is not converting hands to offense, then our turns where she was able to take us off of big plays are less impactful because she can't capitalize on that tempo. If Nu ends up playing more like Uzuri, then I'm a little more worried about it. Redline Uzuri is a harder matchup for Kayo to win, but at the same time, I have yet to see anything from Nu that is scarier than what Uzuri can do with Shakedown, and with the hidden information that Uzuri is presenting from turn to turn with her hero power. But this is game 1 against Nu. My opinion is going to change as I play against my teammates who are experimenting with Nu, against players on Talishar from week to week as they improve, weed out the chaff, and really decide what belongs in the deck. And I hope you'll all join me on that journey. I hope you enjoyed this game. I'm sure you learned something. If so, be sure to assault and batter that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free, it helps me out, but no matter what you do, catch me back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay and more into the Mistveil, part of the Mistveil gameplay. And until then, take care.